We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Monday by the time you hear this. We're recording this on Sunday afternoon, and we have the good fortune to have another great guest. And this is Kristen from California. Everybody gets excited to hear from her. She always has some great insights and a different perspective. That's the one thing. That's the one thing. Welcome, Kristen. I appreciate you coming on. Um, but the interesting thing is when I started doing the podcast, I thought, well, do I need a co-host? Nah, I don't need somebody else with an ego in there. I don't, or be there when I need them to be there. So I started taking people from the audience. And I don't know how it worked out this way, but everybody I took from the audience and put them on the podcast, they're great. They're many times, oftentimes smarter than me, more articulate than me, and it helps make the show great. And then I go do the lives on TikTok. I get people from the DOD coming on, people who have all kinds of experience, and I'm going, shit, I just have to be a conductor here. I don't even have to do anything anymore. So we bring Kristen in, and she offers some interesting insight. We were talking about something just before, and I mentioned this on the podcast too. You have a kind of a weird feeling like I do about this whole signal gate and some of the people involved. Why don't you give us your take on that?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. Hello, everybody, and I'm so happy to be back. I just want to just briefly touch on what you just said, is that you're so easy to talk to. So the conversation can just flow for the co-host or for your guest because, yes, you are the conductor and it's easy to have a rapport with you. So that's what I love about your podcast is that you are able to talk to people from all walks of life with all different perspectives. And even if we agree to disagree, we still can have a very constructive conversation, I feel. So I'm just so happy to be here and thank you everyone for joining us. Um, what we were talking about, obviously, which is, the top news headline right now, which I want to mention, I believe has legs. I don't believe this is going away. The press loves it. The audience loves it. I used to work in reality TV. I know how this goes. This is what's considered gold. And you're going to mine that gold for as much as you possibly can get. And when it first broke, that was my initial impression was we have been, and I mentioned this when I was on the show before, you fight fascism, one paper cut at a time, right? And so we were, boom, paper cut, Jasmine Crockett, boom, AOC paper cut, boom, Bernie Sanders paper cut. But Signalgate is a self-inflicted wound of the most epic proportions. But of course it is, because everybody in the administration is not smart, right? You have to
Right.
always remember these people are not smart and they have a personality disorder. They're a narcissist or have antisocial personality disorder. So they're always thinking in terms of ego and power and never in terms of consequences or right or wrong, right? A narcissist doesn't care about breaking the law. The law means nothing to them. But the thing that struck me right away that has just gone under the radar, you don't really hear too many people mention this, is why did Mike Waltz have Jeffrey Goldberg's phone number, his personal phone number, in his cell phone? The
That's an excellent
Atlantic
question.
is right. The Atlantic is a independent paper magazine. I'm not sure what they consider themselves. Um, Owned by a lady who's a billionaire who is not a Trumper. And in the first administration, the Atlantic broke a bunch of really not so great stories about the administration. They broke the suckers and losers when Trump called veterans suckers and losers. They broke that story. Okay.
Right.
And my administration. And I had this thought of, is he the leak? Now, granted, he's an imbecile that he added him to the chat because I don't know if that was intentional. That's pretty, that's not, I don't know how advantageous that would have been to him to do it on purpose, but his phone number was in his phone. And if we go back to Watergate and Deep Throat, it was all inside Nixon's administration that were
Right.
leaking that.
Well,
And so
what's
I'm
interesting.
just,
Well, what's
that's just a
interesting about
question
it.
I'd love to know everyone's opinion. So let us know in the comments too what you think.
Absolutely. And I thought about that too. There's some other reports, and I don't know that they're true. There was some reports some other hackers got like Pete Hegseth's email address, and it was a Russian email address. I don't know if that's just bullshit. Somebody else said they got a hold of Mike Waltz's Venmo, and they could see who was all on his Venmo, and there was a lot of journalists on there, which seemed kind of interesting. If he was smart, and we don't know that he is, if he was smart and he wants to leak this, he wouldn't include him in the conversation. He'd just screenshot the chats and send it to him, is what he would do if he was smart. But we can't. But what you said about this having legs, this is the interesting thing. Most things that happen with Donald Trump's uh, going back 8, 9 years, some big scandal happens, people are all freaked out about it, then something else happens and we forget about it. And that's not what's happening here. And I think one telling thing that happened, Pete Hegseth and maybe Mike Waltz are going to end up the scapegoats. Because here's Pete Hegseth. Donald Trump says, I don't even know why you're looking at him. Well, he's the one that posted the information, you dumb fuck. You don't even know what Signal app is. So he posts that. He's in trouble. He lied prior to them all coming out. And he would think they'd want to tamp that down and kind of smooth it over. But just yesterday or the day before, we get this other information that says, oh, yeah, he's bringing his wife to these classified meetings. It sounds like somebody's trying to sabotage Pete Hegseth or maybe the whole situation here.
That's exactly what I think, and that's what I'm talking about with the parallel to Watergate. It was people inside the Nixon administration that were the leaks. Deep Throat, I believe, was the deputy chief of staff that ended up being who Deep Throat was. And I
He might have
think
been he
that
might have been the FBI director or the yeah he was in the administration.
he was in the administration, and all the leaks in the Nixon administration were all the things that were coming out were leaks inside the administration. And I think that's what we have here. Even if we go to before Elon went to go to the Pentagon to have the briefing about the China and Taiwan invasion plans or potential invasion plans, someone leaked that to the New York Times, right? So
Yeah.
someone inside leaked that as well, right before Signalgate, right? So, and then that meeting got foiled because they had to change it because it got outed and Elon was pissed. So I think we're also seeing a fracture of the people inside the administration who are fed up with him too.
Right. Right.
Right. So I
Well,
think there's a couple different factions of what's going on here. There's not everybody's on the same side, not everybody's serving the same master.
one other factor we have to look at, whether it be Donald Trump all the way down to these people in the cabinet. You can call them criminals. You can call them corrupt. That's true. You can call them stupid. That's true too. But one disadvantage they have, and the reason there'll be so many fuck ups, is because government's a big machine and they have no clue how that machine runs. So as far as they know, that Signal app might have been just fine or a way to cover their tracks for documentation, but they don't know how the machine runs. And if you don't know how the machine runs, you don't know how it's going to bite you in the ass. So they're going to continually get bitten in the ass. This fuck up, this mistake, is probably just one of many that we will see coming up.
I agree. And that's why I said it has legs, because now the press is invested in the takedown of him, where before they were just singing his praises, right? And
Right.
gaslighting us on TV every night. And the thing we have to understand about all of these people is how arrogant they are, how smug they are. So even if they might be smart in one area, because I don't think Tulsi Gabbard is stupid, and I don't think, I do think Pete Hegseth, but there are some people in there who are not dumb people, but they are arrogant, they are crooked, they are compromised, they have personality disorders, so they are short-sighted. They go for the instant gratification. He revealed all of that top secret information, a like a college kid, like a frat boy. The energy behind it was like, we're blowing things up, right? It was so careless because of the arrogance, because he's Trump's guy, right? And I think if the reporting is correct, when the reporter for The Atlantic was added to the chat, Mike Waltz was in a restaurant slash bar called the Palms. So he was out. He was out having drinks or dinner or both. So I think it was an accident. He meant to add someone else to that chat. And I don't think it would be that intentional because of all the other people on the chat. They could all see what he was up to. So that's what I'm saying. That's not advantageous to him. But I think it indicates there is something bigger at play here of all of these different factions of people who are involved in this administration that are crooked in one way or the other. And there's no honor among thieves, right? So I think we had talked about this before, that the downfall will probably happen from the inside of the cult. And I think that's what we're starting to see. Like I said, this was a huge self-inflicted wound that's not going to go away. Will get bigger. It only will have more branches because of how arrogant and smug and corrupted these people are. I mean, the other part of it is, I think they're using Signal and WhatsApp or whatever they're using because they want their phones to be hacked. They're making it accessible for Russia and China. That's part of them being an asset and why they were installed in their job. And it runs so deep. We don't know if those email addresses, and I think it was even a Russian phone number. There was a lot of those kind of leaks, and we don't know if they're true or not. But I think that them not using the proper channels for classified information is part of them being a Russian asset. I think that's part of their cooperation with being installed in that job.
Well, here's one thing we know for sure that's a fact, that Donald Trump's special envoy, Witkoff, he was in Moscow. He may have even been in the Kremlin, from what I understand. And he's using his personal phone. If we don't think Russians hacked his phone and intercepted whatever information, I mean, that's the thing that troubles me.
That's something I think that was part of it, why they use Signal. Yeah.
Well, and then the thing is, if this happened once, the likelihood of this being a one-off is almost 0%. They'll do it until they get caught, and then they'll try something else.
Yeah, and also Tulsi refused to say where she was. She was out of the country as well. And do we know where she was yet? Because she refused to say, and I haven't seen clear where she was unless I missed it, which is possible.
It sounds like she was in Asia, South Asia. I thought it was like Hong Kong or something like that. It just seemed weird when you're in an important event like that, whether it be on Signal or in some legitimate channels, to sit there and say, I don't recall. Whether or not you're criminal or corrupt, maybe you should be in fucking memory care because it was just 10 days ago and it was kind of a big event. If you don't recall, then what do you recall?
There was several times in that hearing that the blood drained from her face. All of the blood drains. She was literally like blank for a second, and then you could see the wheels turning as she was coming up with the lie or what she was going to say. You could literally see the deviance in real time as the blood would drain from her face, and then her brain would start like in overdrive of how she could get out of this. That's what I'm saying. She knows what she's doing is wrong. She is not stupid. She is deep. And she was put in that job to tear it down. Everybody is in that job not to do a bad job, not to help the American people. They are in that job to destroy everything. And one of the things that over the last couple of years, I thought about blocking, but I ended up not, and it served me well, even though it's horrific. But on my X account, when I was active on there, I would always see clips from Steve Bannon's podcast. People would always post it. and Tucker Carlson's, you would always see those floating around even before Elon
Right.
bought Twitter, right? And Steve Bannon has been saying that they were going to do this for 10 years. Tucker Carlson said they were going to do this.
Yeah.
Steve Bannon said, we're going to get rid of Social Security. We're going to get rid of Medicare. We want to bring the population down to 50 million. You hear him? They want to bring the population down to 50 million.
Which is
So, which
300
is
less than we have now.
exactly terrifying, horrific. But that is there. But now he said around 50 million. But I remember seeing that clip and going, whoa. Okay.
Yeah, that's a little
And
frightening.
frightening. And then clips of Tucker Carlson, and I'm talking about like 2017, 2018, like I said, and even before that, they've been talking about this for 10 years, that they were going to destroy everything when they got in there, and that they
Yeah.
would never let the power go when they got in there. And that's why I don't mean to scare people when I come on the podcast, but I believe knowledge is power, and we will succeed and we will come through this, but we need to know what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
And one thing I'm noticing a lot that I want to touch on as well is that a lot of the lawyers on social media, like YouTube, and even the lawyers on the news are really doing us a disservice because they keep touting the law, the law, the law. And this administration doesn't care about the law. They're
Right.
not going to listen to court orders. They're going to lie and say they complied and then do the opposite. If we think even the justice system is going to save us, we are wrong. The justice system already completely failed in holding him accountable the first time, and now
Right.
he's back in power. They will maybe slow him down. There will be times they trip him up, but they will not be able to stop what has happened. And people come into my comments all the time on Blue Sky and say, oh, the judge gave him 24 hours. Oh, the judge said this. Oh, well, Glenn Kushner said that.
Yeah.
No, no. The judicial system might slow them down, yes, and they will have some blows, but they will not stop what they're doing. And I saw the other day, and I think it was inspector generals who were suing to get their job back, and the judge actually said, "You have been unlawfully fired. It is unconstitutional that you have been terminated, but I can't get you your job back."
So what
So you
good
see
is
what
it?
I'm saying? That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to tell everybody with people who are believing in lawyers. And I put my faith in these lawyers too over the last few years. And now I've learned they're lawyers. They believe in the law. They don't understand or aren't comprehending our system doesn't work fast enough and doesn't have the right energy to match the criminality of what we're dealing with.
You know, we got Donald Trump and MAGA and all this strictly through not policy, not facts, not truth. We got him, and I'm making this word up, this two words up, but I think you'll understand what I mean. Um, we got Donald Trump strictly by tabloid tactics, meaning it was all rhetoric, it was all bullshit, it was all ranting and raving, and that's what got Donald Trump elected. So if that's the case, we should look at that as our weapon to push back, and having this signal gate kind of in the realm now. That's why we have to keep it at that level. There were a couple of subtle things I noticed, and I wonder if you noticed them in that hearing. Now that hearing wasn't, it was just happenstance that hearing came up when it did, because that hearing was set before the whole signal gate thing. It was just the annual hearing about national intelligence. Two things. The first one's, I'm going to sound catty doing this, but you watched, um, um, I'm lost now. I get worked up and I forget the name. The woman on the panel, the
Tulsi?
liar, Tulsi,
Tulsi.
Tulsi Gabbard. Did you notice Tulsi? Now Tulsi is an older woman, but she's an attractive woman, or at least has been up to this point. Have you ever seen Tulsi's skin that broken out ever?
That was horrifying. I had no idea that her skin was in that condition. I have never seen that
Didn't
before.
used
And
to
yes,
be.
Tulsi is a beautiful woman. She is a very beautiful woman, and she presents herself very well. And she clearly had her hair done and her makeup done and a nice suit on. That's what I'm saying. This woman knows what she's doing, which makes it even worse. And if it's coming out as acne, for me, that says she's literally festering from the inside because she knows
Stress.
better.
Yeah.
I said, I fully believe she knows better. She's not a stupid woman. She was in the military. Somehow she has gotten caught up in being a Russian asset or whoever her masters are. And the way that she spoke on Fox News as a guest leads us to believe that she had some allegiance to Putin because of how pro-Russia she was when they invaded Ukraine. So, but even before that, but that was really alarming how pro-Russia she was from the beginning, and basically said like they should just go ahead and give them Ukraine because they can't win. I remember when she said it on Fox News, and
Right.
coming from her being in the military, it was just very odd. So the seeing her skin that way, bless her. I mean, that is, and you know what that does to your self-esteem. And so yes, that was very odd. I think that and the point that I wanted to make about the legal system is I don't want us to give our power away to how this is going to end. We have to match energy and keep it up. The Tesla takedown yesterday, I don't know if you saw on
No.
your For You page, some of the actual bigger Tesla takedowns like San Francisco, Tucson had thousands of people show up and shut down those Teslas. And
Wow.
so we are making headway in terms of the groundswell of constituents. There was another town hall in Indiana that was on my For You page this morning. I believe she's Russian, and she seems like a Russian plant in Congress. She's a
Oh,
Republican.
yeah,
She had
yeah.
a town
Yeah, I know
hall,
what you're
and
talking about.
they fired her up last night. They were like, "Are you going to ask for Pete Hegseth to resign? Are you asking for the resignation of everybody on the Signal chat?" And she said, no, they didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
And she was literally getting booed right on out of there. So, and she was so smug. She was so arrogant. She was so condescending. And this is not playing well, right? So I guess what I just want everybody to understand is the judicial system will slow this down, but it will be us and it will be people on the inside. It will be MAGAs that wake up and realize they've been had. It is up to us to end this. It's up to us.
There's one last thing I wanted to bring up, that hearing that I thought was a very subtle tell. Now, with Tulsi, it just tells me she's got some confidence or some guilt problems going on with the breakout of her skin. I mean, she's not 22. She's in her 40s or 50s or whatever she is. It just seemed weird because she was always meticulous about the way she looked. I mean, she would take pictures as if she were a model and could probably pull it off. But she looked haggard at that moment. She was upset. She was guilty. She was stressed out. Something was going on. But then there was John Radcliffe, and I don't know if you listened to him very closely. Uh, you know, when you have a father that was a narcissist like I do, you listen very closely to what people say and you look for the nuances and you look for the tells as to what they really mean. Because most people, when you're talking to a narcissist, they don't mean what they say. They're trying to manipulate you someplace else. But I was watching John Radcliffe, the head of the CIA, and he's in front. He's obviously uncomfortable being asked these questions. And how he always answered the questions, he always said, "Nothing I said was classified. Nothing I showed was classified." He wasn't addressing the big picture. He was just saying, these guys might be fucked up, but I didn't do anything wrong. He was strictly trying to save his ass, which tells me he knows how fucked up the rest of the situation is.
I think that's called consciousness of guilt.
Yeah.
What you just described is him knowing that it was a crime, him knowing it was wrong, and him trying to remove himself or extricate himself from culpability in the situation. Again, this is also what a person with a personality disorder does. Not me.
Yeah.
But yet, did he stop the signal call? Did anyone on the group chat say, this shouldn't be happening? We need to shut this chat down. The fact that they were so comfortable to talk this way outside of a secure area, like you said, means they do it, means that this is what they do. I think that what you're tuning into is such of the bigger conspiracy of what we're dealing with. That these people have literally sold their soul to the devil.
Yeah.
Literally, figuratively, is that they have chained themselves to the Titanic, which is Trump. They know it. Okay. They also know that the criminality and everything that they've been instructed to do behind the scenes from Russia or whoever, Peter Thiel, all the bigger players, like I said, their masters, and there are different people have different masters, is that there is no one is trying to do the right thing. No one cares about doing the right thing. No one is trying to help the American people. That's not what this is about. This is about their ego getting as much money and power as they can, and it's going to be so sloppy and so messy. And they're going to make so many mistakes. And now that the press is onto it, it's just going to just keep going, the more and more mistakes. And like I said, if we actually have some more coordinated leaking here, if there is some, coordinated effort to take him down or to leak or whatever is going on behind the scenes, this is what we were waiting for. This is what we wanted. This is literally what we were waiting for. Right? We were waiting for them to get in their way so badly that it took them down, and we are getting there.
Well, yeah, exactly right. And I think what John Radcliffe was showing is a sign of things to come. People get sucked into Donald Trump. They know it's wrong. They don't care it's wrong. All they know is they can benefit some way. So they hop on that wagon. But when that fucking wagon starts going off the cliff, they're going, I had nothing to do with this. I always thought it was a bad idea. You're going to be seeing people bailing on this, and it's not going to work for them. They've been in this too long, but they're going to try to distance themselves from every bad thing that happens. And, that's what we're seeing with Signalgate. And you're absolutely right. My experience in life is if you've got a positive, confident outlook and you keep moving forward and everything's in place, you're going to do fine. Once it goes to shit, and that's all you got in your head is, oh, it's going to shit, then just more shit comes because what you're thinking kind of manifests into what's next. This is what you expect. And this may be the turning point for these people because they are starting to lose. They were able to divert and distract in other scandals, but like you say, this one has legs, and this is starting to fall apart. Then we find out Pete Hegseth's wife is going to these meetings. More and more shit's going to come out. And they're still trying to run a government, so something else will get fucked up in the process.
And once you have taken the money, once you're compromised, they know you're compromised. It's over, right? Once any of them had taken the money to pay off their debts, to silence people or whatever they've had to do over the last couple of years because they don't have clean living, once you've taken the money, the narcissist knows they've got you.
Yeah.
And that's what we have here, right? And Trump is even notorious for blackmailing people. He has all kinds of tactics. And when you get in that web, it's very hard to extricate yourself. And it's so deep in that cult. It's all your family, it's all your friends. And I'm not making excuses for them, but that's, they're so deep in this culture and they have each other all convinced that even if it's breaking the law, it's the right thing to do for him. Right. And so it doesn't matter what the law says, you got to serve the master. One thing also why it's not working is because Trump is so diminished. He used to be better at deflecting and distracting, right? All of the narcissist tactics of divert, attack, deflect, reverse victim and offender. That isn't working like it used to because his energy is so diminished, right?
He's getting tired.
He
There's
said
no
this
question.
morning, yes, he's getting tired. I saw him say this morning on, I forget who was interviewing him because I see just the clips. Yeah, because I can't watch the whole thing. I just see the clips on social media. And they said, are you going to fire Mike Waltz? And he's like, I haven't heard that. I haven't heard that. And the first thing I thought was, he's not even running anything. They just tell him what they're doing. He's saying, I haven't heard that, which means he's not part of the decision making. That's what I heard when he said that.
Well, that was one of the disturbing things about this chat is I found it strange, and I'm not experienced in protocol when it comes to bombing another country. But when they referred to Donald Trump, they go, far as I know, it's a go from Donald Trump. It sounded like that it was a go from Donald Trump. When you're going to bomb another country, shouldn't the final word come from the fucking president? And instead, he's going to play fucking golf?
Yeah, I think he's just a figurehead. I think all of the people around run things and make the decisions. I think he's just handed off and delegated everything. He only wanted to be president to avoid prosecution and to make his legal problems go away. He didn't want the job. So I
He
think
likes the
he's
perks,
very
though.
hands off.
He
He
likes the
likes the
perks and the
perks.
prestige
Exactly.
for his personality.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
But he's very hands off. Um, and, you know, the way that it was so cavalier also about the fact this could be a war crime. And that was also what really struck me about the text thread is that they purposefully targeted a civilian apartment building that
right.
had innocent people in it. And they high-fived each other via emojis when they killed innocent people in an apartment building that had nothing to do with anything.
They killed some kids. They killed some
Yes,
kids in that.
they killed everybody in that apartment building. When the quote unquote target went into the apartment building to visit his girlfriend, they blew it up. And in the Geneva Convention, you are not allowed to purposefully soft target civilian places like an apartment building. And that's the other thing that's been missed in the press is this a war crime? Why were we
It's a
targeting
good
and
point.
killing innocent people?
Yeah, I mean, if a Democrat did that, everybody would be screaming their heads off. You know, it'd be hilarious if Jack Smith went back to work at the Hague and then had to prosecute Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth in the fucking Hague for war crimes. That would be awesome.
Yeah, because he basically has immunity from now on because everything he's going to claim is an official act. I realize the immunity only is limited to official acts, but he's going to claim everything's an official act from now on. So it's like semantics, basically.
But he only has immunity in this country. If he does
And that's what I'm saying.
commit,
Exactly. At The Hague, he doesn't have kind of immunity in international courts. And I know we're not a member of the ICC, but it would be interesting if the Hague and the ICC have brought charges against lots of different. I mean, the prime minister or president of the Philippines, Duarte.
right, and Donnie doesn't have that many international friends anymore. So he
Yeah.
could find himself in a in a bad spot. Here's what I know about narcissists. I've said this 100 times. No matter how long it takes, they always crash and burn. And I can tell where Donald Trump is at this point because I've seen this happen before. You're riding high for a long time. You're playing the game. You're younger. You can do all this stuff. You have the money. But there always comes a point where you're juggling too much shit. You're trying to keep this up and that up. And him being president puts him in a position where he's way over his fucking head. So he's juggling and juggling, and then thing goes to shit. And they're so weak mentally, they just go in a downward spiral emotionally as well as whatever's happening. And that's why there's an ultimate crash. And I kind of believe that Donald's in that spot because when I hear him talk, like you say, I don't know about that. I don't know about the four military people in Lithuania. I don't know anything about anything. I think he's confused, and and that's fine if everything's going well. But when things go to shit with Stephen Miller or whoever's making the call, when it goes to shit, he's going to have to be responsible for it, and he's going to try to pawn it off on people. But the buck stops with Donald Trump, and this is where it's going to get tough for him because he won't be able to battle all the different angles of bad shit coming at him.
Yeah, I agree. His energy is so diminished at this point. He's just not the same. If you see clips from him, from the first time around to where he is now, he has a very small, limited vocabulary. A lot of times he seems completely out of it. Um, and the thing is, all the people around him are not friends. They're not a team, right? They're
No.
not going to pick up the slack and work together and make things happen. They're out for numero uno. They're going to
Right.
backstab, betray. And so now that the press knows that this gets ratings, there's going to be even more leaks and more incentive for more of this to come out because once, like I said, I did this for a living. Once you see that that storyline is hitting, you keep going. Okay. You don't
Right.
stop. When the storyline is hitting, you keep going and going and going with it.
Well, and that's a very important perspective here, because the media has played such a huge role in Donald Trump's rise and ultimate fall. Uh, but Donald Trump would do something like, yeah, I can just grab him by the genitals. And that's big news. But then he does something crazy or funny or goofy or stupid. And the media just grabs onto anything, like you say, that is gold or is money. And it wipes out anything bad that was previous to that. Or if he does something bad, then something worse. And it's just constantly in flux. So you can never focus on anything. But this one thing does seem to hold people's attention, and it is kind of the hot topic right now. So it's really kind of hinges on the media. If they really believe that this is the big story, they're going to pound on this, and nothing Donald Trump can do. I mean, what did he do right after all this stuff comes out? Oh yeah, I'm going to put tariffs on cars on April 2nd. He was trying desperately to distract from it, but nothing worked.
Yeah. And at some point, like you said, the narcissist runs out of tricks.
Yeah.
At some point, it's at some point they can't pull a rabbit out of a hat anymore. And we're getting there with him. I think the other person that really knows this is wrong is Marco Rubio. He knows this is wrong too. He looks terrible as well. He
Yeah,
knows
he really does.
better than this. He really does. And he could have been great at one point. He had a lot of potential, and then he decided to go in that direction. And the same with Elise Stefanik. This woman went to Harvard. This woman is not stupid. She looks terrible as well, and she just paid the ultimate price. He just burned her, with her not getting her cushy UN job.
She's got to be
So
pissed. She's
this is going to
in
keep
spite of what
going
she says.
because that's what I'm saying. She's gonna, you don't think she's a snake and that she's gonna backstab him in some way with some vote of hers or something that she leaks? Of course she is. Like I said,
Yeah,
he's making enemies within the camp. And like I said, I believe that Mike Walls exposed himself as a longtime leak by having Jeffrey Goldberg in his phone. And
I think
I,
so
I
too.
yeah. And I think it's basically the Titanic right now. We're going to watch in real time as people start jumping ship and the Titanic starts to go down. I think also one aspect of this that we can't ignore is there's no way, even if the military high brass are Trumpers and have all been replaced, with lackeys rather than competent people, they are still in the military. And it's not going to be okay with them ever to put their troops in harm's way. The last thing any general wants to do is lose troops.
Right.
It lowers morale. It's bad all around. And even if they're lackeys, I have a hard time believing the Pentagon is just going to like let this go internally within what's going on in their system at the Pentagon.
I'd be a little more worried about them doing whatever Donald Trump says if they were winning right now, if they were being successful. But as I was saying before, once it starts going off the cliff and people can see that this is going to fail, this is going to culminate in a fucking failure. I mean, somebody like Marco Rubio is a good example. He's riding high with Donald Trump, even though he doesn't believe anything Donald Trump says. He's going to gain all the ground. He's going to get the prestige. He's going to get the position. But Marco Rubio is sitting in the Oval Office right now with his head down, not knowing what to say, because he can see the end. He can see how this is going to go. And his problem is he's a young guy. What happens when Donald Trump is dead or a fucking pariah in this country and everything comes apart? Marco Rubio is going to say, well, I want to be a senator. But nobody's going to want him being a senator because they're all going to say, but you sided with the fucking pariah. These people are sacrificing half their careers just to gain some ground here. And now they're starting to see the demise of it, because Donald Trump can't last emotionally or physically. These efforts, we see what happens with the stock market. We see what happens with these protests. It's not going well. And you don't have to be a
Yeah.
smart guy to understand that. They see the end, so people don't know what to do at this point. But they will fucking jump off faster than hell when it seems the end is near.
And that's why I'm equating it to Titanic. It was all beautiful and wonderful until it wasn't.
You're right.
Right? The Titanic was beautiful and wonderful until it wasn't. And then you needed to get off as quick as you could. And that's one thing what a narcissist does is dangle that carrot, and they keep dangling and dangling it. It'll get better. The money is going to be there for you. The awards, the accolades, they dangle that carrot, and these people keep going and going. And then you find yourself in so deep with the narcissist. And that's where Marco Rubio is. That's where Lee Stefanik is. And the narcissist will throw you under the bus to save themselves at any moment. But when you've gotten in so deep, like I said, I'm not making excuses for them, but you really compromise your integrity when you're in that deep. And the thing is that he's a one-term president. This was never going to go well, ever, because he was a lame duck to start with. Right? This was never going to go well. And even Larry Kudlow on Fox said, Trump tanked the economy. He had a great economy. All he had to do was put it on cruise control. What the heck? So even the economic guys are starting to say it, right? Because the tariff stuff makes no difference. And I read it makes a big difference in the economy, and there was no reason to do it. That's what I meant to say. There was no reason to do it, and it makes a horrible effect on the economy when literally he just had to put it in cruise control from what Biden did. If he had just done nothing, literally just done nothing, it would be better than what he's doing now. And even if he flip-flops and takes those tariffs off, the prices of those cars have gone up, and they're not going to come down anytime soon.
Well, and he's made a pretty stable market that was continually increasing, the stock market, and now whether it's up or down, it's volatile now, and that's never a good thing when we're talking about the stock market.
Yeah, and the stock market likes stability.
Yeah,
and we had that with Joe Biden. They called him Sleepy Joe Biden, but it was stable, and that's what the stock market likes, and that's why it grew. The other thing that I want to talk about is what he's planning to do April 2nd. He said some sort of Liberation Day, and this might be more of a distraction from Signalgate because he's got to keep coming up with things, but he mentioned this a while ago. But I was just coming to a point of he's going to keep trying to have distractions and do really crazy stuff like the tariffs and, to get the distractions, because he is getting criticism within his own ranks and within his own ecosphere. But the whole Greenland thing, I was just reading about that this morning. I mean, what an epic flop. They never even left the Army or the SpaceX, whatever base it was, Space Force Base. I guess that's what it's called, the Space Force Base. And the actual plane ride there was longer than they were actually there. So
that was a failure. That was an absolute failure. I mean, they started out.
Yeah, that
started out with just his wife.
And then JD gave a speech there. It was absolutely horrible, trashing Europeans. I mean, it was just so weird. He's so unlikable. So I just want to go back to your point of they're not winning on so many fronts, right? It's all falling flat, and it's not getting the response or reaction or the accolades that they want. And so that makes the press more rabid to attack because they are lame, right? So all of their little distractions over the last week haven't worked. And then with the epic flop of Greenland, it was just like they're just shooting blanks right now. They're not able to get the narrative back. I don't think the way they want that narrative to be. And they had it just a few short weeks ago, right? They were owning that narrative. And it is so interesting how in the media it can change so fast.
Yeah. Well, the media, I've heard people call the media the jackals. maybe it's just locally here, a radio guy who was in the media. He calls them the jackals. And it's accurate in the sense of what you were saying is they will find whatever weakness, exploit it for their own benefit. Like Joe Biden, looking a little slow, stammering, not having a good debate. They saw that as a weakness. They jumped all over it and they made hay while the sun shines. Now the weakness is because they're in control. The Republicans are in control in the House, the Senate, and of course the presidency. The weaknesses are only going to be that are important anyway from the Republicans. Democrats have all kinds of weaknesses, but it doesn't really matter because they're not in control. And when they see Donald Trump stumble, I just think the tide has turned. For the longest time, it was anything the Republicans did was great. And now they're starting to see a little bit of blood. They're seeing these people become lame. And that's not going to go away until these guys are down. There's just too much money to be made by the media by destroying these people. They love building people up, but as you know, they love destroying those motherfuckers too.
That's what I said. They'll just turn on you on a dime. I mean, literally 2 weeks they were singing his praises. He could do no wrong, the golden age, acting like, Elon was doing all this great stuff, and it just totally shifted. And that's why we do actually need to keep calling and keep the pressure on our congressmen and our senators, because we don't want them to let up either. We want them to keep going. If they drop the ball here and let this go, that is like an epic failure on their part. And we also know that they are very, unreliable and most of the time useless. So we do need to keep those phone calls up and keep the pressure on them to keep this active, right? I think they're doing better with the town halls where they're going into sister districts. I've seen a lot of that where the Republican congressperson isn't planning on showing up to the town hall. So a Democrat is going in their place. Here in California, in Southern California, he was the mayor of Long Beach and he lost both of his parents and then ran for Congress. Both of his parents died of COVID when he was the mayor of Long Beach. And
Oh,
Trump
wow.
really messed with him during COVID, they were dumping migrants there. They really tried to mess with him, and they handled it really well. It was for everything that went on in Long Beach, they handled it COVID very well. And so he went on to become a congressman, and he's doing town halls in a sister district in Orange County of a Trumper because she's not showing up to the town hall, and he got a standing ovation. Yeah,
Wow. Well,
yeah,
you've been a big
and
proponent of making calls and sending letters and protesting. Your heart's got to be a little lifted when you see what's happening with these town halls, the pushback they're getting, the Democrats having town halls and getting good responses. We had the veterans protesting in Washington, D.C. and all around the country. That's got to give you a good feeling that at least people have gotten to the point where they're motivated to actually do something because we've spent decades with all of us sitting on our hands being apathetic.
yeah, and I think we're going to see more and more of this. And, the part that was disheartening for me was when the congressman complained about the phone calls they were getting. When Hakeem Jeffries complained about it, I just wanted to scream. Like, we're calling because we care and we want you to listen. And it, like I said, it's going to be us, right? Who's going to save this country? Who's going to save our democracy? It's us.
Right.
Who's going to save our values? We don't want a country that is, 1850s values. We don't want a country
Right.
taking things back to the 1700s. We want a progressive, modern society that works for everybody. And that's what we have to keep our eye on the prize of the kind of country that we want. And right now, everything is still fixable. That's what gives me hope. Right now, we are at a place where this can still all be fixed and made better. My concern is that if we go over too much, what happens if we get to the point where we start to get to the unfixable? We're not there. Right now, this is still fixable. And that gives me a lot of hope that there is the groundswell of community and that I don't think all is lost. This isn't going to last forever. Like I said, I think we're watching the Titanic right now.
I personally think, the Republicans are going to go down just for the things they've done, trying to overturn elections, undermine democracy, try to overthrow the government. That's what Republicans essentially have done. But I've always said that Democrats are complicit in some ways, either by being weak or being tied to wealthy corporations or wealthy people. I'm wondering, when I've said this before, and I would have never said this before the election, but as I'm watching it, this is what I'm seeing. It's almost like we have to have an ultimate disaster before everyone wakes up and the changes come. And I think history has shown us that's kind of what's happened. You go real high and then you come down, and you don't start coming back up until you hit rock bottom, where there's no question who's fucked up and who's trying to do the right thing. But um, I'm wondering if we aren't going to see a dramatic change in our government. And I don't mean a different kind of government, but we're going to see a lot of Republicans getting aced out when this goes south. But I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of Democrats too. We may have a totally different perspective, a totally different picture of how our Congress ultimately looks after this is said and done. At least I hope that's the case.
I think we're seeing the next generation of Democrats come into power. So we need Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and their ilk to retire, please. And even Bernie, though he's out there and doing fantastic work, he is, let's see, 85. I mean, he's amazing, but he also is doing the right thing by passing the torch to AOC, right?
Right.
And that was one thing that Nancy Pelosi was really reluctant to do, is to pass the torch to AOC, but thank God Bernie is. And so I think we're seeing the next generation of Democrats emerging, even like Maxwell Frost, who is a Gen Zer. I think he's like 26. He's a
Brilliant
congressman in
guy.
Florida. Even he's stepping up to the place. Yep, stepping up to the plate. I think one to watch is John Ossoff. He has matured, the senator from Georgia. Watching him mature over the last couple of years, he is the one that had Tulsi Gabbard's face drain all the blood, all the oxygen left her body. She briefly turned into a ghost because
Hmm.
she vacated her body because he lit her up. And I don't know if you remember in his debate when he first got elected, I think his name was David something that he ran against, who was the
Purdue.
incumbent
Purdue.
senator. Yes, David Perdue, and he called him a crook to his face. He said, "You sir are a
Yeah.
crook." I mean, so he has really matured, and I think he's one to watch, to be a leader in the future, to be a possible presidential candidate. I think Pete has really stepped up to the plate. I saw that he just made a YouTube channel. So we've got to have Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, everybody step to the side. And I don't mean to be ageist or ableist, but we need new voices, because they're understanding you have to match energy, and the old or Democrats don't get it. They still think you can work across the aisle. Even when Joe Biden would say, "We got to work across the aisle," I just wanted to pull my hair out, because I was like, he doesn't get it. You can't work across the aisle anymore. Like, it just doesn't work
No.
like that anymore. And I even was listening to a podcast the other day. Oh, Hawk podcast. He had a woman who was on the ground in Florida campaigning for the special elections.
Right.
And she said the Democratic Party is still thinking that they can use Barack Obama's playbook and that that will work today. When she
No.
said that, I just was like, are you kidding me? Ah. And she said, and she
Yeah.
was frustrated with it too. That, yes, that worked for Barack Obama, but that was so long ago. We are in totally uncharted territory. That's not going to work for us anymore. And I'm glad that there are people in the party that are realizing this.
I'm glad you brought up Ossoff, because I brought it up in a couple of other podcasts, and honestly, I hadn't considered John Ossoff as a leader going forward. I kind of sleeping on John Ossoff, but the very moment that you were talking about, when he was talking to Tulsi Gabbard, or even Mike Waltz or Radcliffe, he was talking to Radcliffe. He did exactly what Democrats and the media should have done since the beginning, and had they done it, we would never be in this position. but he takes it to him. He minces no words. And then when they try their standard strategy of talking a lot and talking loud and trying to talk over people, he just wasn't fucking having it. He talked over them and he kept talking. And that's the kind of energy we need. All too often, media people or even Democrats, they'll say something and then they'll start ranting bullshit in circles and stuff, and they'll just sit back and let them talk. No, we don't need to hear that shit. Straighten that stuff out. And he's the one guy that I've seen do that effectively. He's young, he's white, which apparently is necessary to win a fucking election, a presidential election. He's a male in this country. So yeah, we
From a
can't
swing
sleep on
state,
Ossoff.
from a swing state, from a state that we need. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think, was he John Lewis's protege?
I think so. Oh, it was either him or the other one.
Yeah.
Because the other
There's a reason
the
why
minister.
Warnock,
Warnock, yeah.
Reverend Warnock,
Yeah.
he, I believe, was a preacher in Martin Luther King's um,
Church. He still
church.
is. He
Yes.
still
Oh, he
is.
still is. Okay. Oh, he still is. Okay. And I believe that John Ossoff was a protege of John Lewis. If I'm wrong, people can correct me and
No,
we can
that
double
that could
check
be right.
that.
Yeah.
But I believe he interned for him, or there was a connection there of being a mentor. So I think that is why we're seeing him mature as well, because there is some real backing there. And he was, like I said, he had that moment in the debate, and that's when I knew. When he called him a crook to his face, I was like, okay, we got something here. With this man, there's some about him. So we do have some hope that the leadership coming up that does have some superstars.
Well, John Ossoff is up for re-election in 26, so it's going to be
Mm-hmm.
interesting to see how that plays out. I mean, we're fortunate to have two blue senators in the state of Georgia. Um, it would be tragic to lose somebody like Ossoff or Warnock to a
Yeah.
Republican. That's one stronghold we have to maintain.
And they might have Marjorie Taylor Greene run for that seat.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
When you said that, the first thing I thought was, oh gosh, they're going to have MTG run for that because they want her in that Senate seat. Yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out.
Well, I hope she runs because if MTG runs against John Ossoff, intellectually, it won't even be on the same par. That's the one thing I've always, everybody's worried about Donald Trump primarying Republicans. That's why they're so terrified and they don't do anything. And I don't know why they're so worried about that because he hasn't had that great amount of success in primarying people because the people he puts up in the primary are such rabid, goofy fucking MAGA people. They rarely win. So I don't know why they're worried about
Yeah.
being primaried by some crazy dipshit.
That's part of the carrot that the narcissist dangles, right? They're
Yeah.
always leading you down a path and promising you more. And they use fear tactics and scare tactics to keep you in line, right? And I think that is one of the frontward excuses. I think the deeper level is they're compromised. They've taken money. He knows he owns them. Their families have been
Yeah.
threatened. They've been blackmailed. And I think there's more to it than being primaried. I think that's the front of the story, but I think it's a
Good point.
layered story on Democrats and Republicans. And we can't kid ourselves. Democrats have taken the money too, right? Democrats have taken the money too. And a lot of Democrats that are silent right now have taken the money from Big Pharma. They've taken the money from high paying donors and are doing their bidding and giving contracts to them in return. So people who are clean are in a different class because we just have to always remember there's a large group of them, Democrat and Republican, that have taken a bribe somewhere. And if Donald Trump knows you've taken a bribe, he owns you. He owns you.
Well, and I've had Republicans say, "Oh, you just say he's blackmailing people and stuff. You got to understand, he was a protege of Roy Cohn, who was a rabid blackmailer. And he taught Donald Trump all of his tricks. The other thing we have to remember is that Donald Trump's protege. The other thing we have to remember was Jeffrey Epstein. And we know Jeffrey Epstein got to be rich by having shit on a lot of rich people. So the idea that Donald Trump has a lot of stuff on a lot of people, that's not crazy to think. And he will use it. I mean, that's the kind of human he is.
Absolutely. And he is known for doing that. And he actually would set up people to take falls, right? He would send marks and people to go and catch them and blackmail them, right? And he would also phone record conversations and get people to say stuff on the phone. He is notorious for this. And he learned it, yes, from Ray Cohn and also the National Enquirer guy, right? I can't remember that man's name right now, but his connection with the National Enquirer, they know how to bury stories. They know how to buy stories and keep people silent. They know how to play this game. He's been doing it for years. And that's part of what my point is. If the judicial system worked properly, he never would have been president in the first place, because the state of New York would have already gotten him for crimes that he had committed in fraud and buildings and insurance there. And then he has skirted the system when he was president, when he wasn't president, and he is continuing to skirt the system now. He knows how to game the system. Roy taught him that as well.
You know, people have said to me, well, democracy, we're finding out democracy is fragile. But the question is, why is democracy fragile? And I think it's because we have a DOJ, we have Congress that have no teeth. Everybody sets up these norms and nobody with a reasonable mind would step over those norms. The moment somebody does, we find out it's all fragile. It's all weak. And of course, if our system of government is weak, of course democracy is going to be weak. So we can't say we're going to fix democracy. We got to fix the whole fucking thing in order for democracy to actually work.
Absolutely. We're seeing all the cracks in our system. We were, fed a lot of fairy tales when we were children in American school systems, where we were told our system was the best. It works perfect. The founding fathers were gods. We were fed this whole thing that wasn't true at all. And we are in some ways just following that energy along of how our country was built, right? On the backs of slaves, with men who didn't want to pay their taxes, with white supremacy. With even the fact that the founding fathers were a lot of sexual predators. And what do we have in the White House right now and all of the people surrounding him? Sexual predators. I mean, Thomas Jefferson was, by today's standards, a P word. Okay, he was a P word. George Washington and Thomas Jefferson grew marijuana and made moonshine. Okay, they were drunk and high, and they were white supremacists. They didn't want to pay their taxes. Our whole system was not based on equality and fairness. That is somewhat of a myth. And the other aspect of this is all three branches were built on trust, co-equal branches, and the primary function of how things work is a trust-based system, especially with the law. When a judge makes an order, that you comply with that order. Is anyone complying with judges' orders now? I don't know. And
Doesn't seem like
do
it.
they intend to comply with judges' orders? Doesn't seem like it. And so why we're in this place with our democracy and why we're calling it fragile is because the trust is broken. There is no trust when you're dealing with a narcissist and people with antisocial personality disorders, megalomaniacs, people that have bipolar and that are literally having delusions of grandeur. I mean, that's like the kind of behaviors that are not, this is not treated. This is not normal, like, mental illness if someone has anxiety or is suffering from depression. This is something totally and completely different when you step into narcissistic territory.
Yeah. It always struck me as strange when I talked to Trump-lefucks and they said, well, Donald Trump said this and he said that. These other politicians are believing what he says. And the thing about it is, what I know about narcissists, they're also pathological liars or sociopaths. The idea that you would sit in front of somebody like that and believe what he tells you, that's fucking stupid. If you have any, I don't know if you've heard these audio tapes, and again, I don't know if they're real or not. They sound real, but they're audio tapes taken covertly of Donald Trump talking to Elon Musk. And Elon Musk sounding emotionally broken and terrified because of what's going on with Tesla. And that doesn't surprise me because Elon seems like an emotionally broken guy. He's immensely insecure and he's very emotional. And Donald Trump's just saying, don't worry about it. It'll be okay. They'll start buying Teslas again. And if I was to talk to Elon, I said, Elon, you might as well give up on Tesla. That's never coming back. Even if they kick you out of being CEO, it's fucking cooked. Tesla's done. That's never coming back. There's other people, bigger companies coming up with electric cars, and Tesla was popular because you were popular. Now you're not popular. Nobody wants to get caught dead in your car.
Yeah, I mean, he's killed his brand. I I've wondered about those leaks. There's one with JD, then there's one with Trump and Elon. I mean, it's very possible that that's Marco Rubio or Mike Walls. I mean, that's what I'm saying. There
Right.
are leaks happening here, and all of those leaks sounded. Sorry, there's a large truck outside. All of those leaks sounded like they were taken from someone's pocket or purse, right? They were the
Right.
way that they were muffled was like someone's phone was in their pocket. But I have thought the same thing that I had about like these little sort of inklings I'm getting that there are big time leaks within that Oval Office. That's how close the leaks are to Trump, right?
Well, and I think
Is
that
that they're that close.
they feel like the end is near and they're trying to
I
cover
think
their ass.
that mhm, starting starting that process. I think that there has been a downward trajectory of Elon. If you look at pictures of him over the last couple of years, like you were talking about Tulsi Gabbard, I saw a picture of Elon at the Met Gala a few years ago, and he looked really nice. And he looked happy and healthy. And if you see him now, I think what we are looking at is drug life. We're looking at
Yeah.
addict, right? If you see pictures of like don't do drugs when they'll show you over the years, like all of someone's mugshots and you can see what drugs has done to them, I think we're seeing that in real time with Elon as the ketamine and drugs that he uses out of his own admission, talking about it on Joe Rogan's show. It's doing drugs on Joe Rogan's show. I think we were seeing the he was basically crying on Fox News and saying he was going to
Yeah.
leave Doge in May. Well, my guess is he has some serious problems at Tesla. He's destroyed the brand. He destroyed the brand. So
Absolutely.
there's a lot going on over there that he's probably got intend to. But I also feel that he's probably done what he wanted to do in Doge. He's gotten control of everything. He can operate it from his phone on an app like he did with the election. And so there's probably no reason for him to be there day to day because he has it all on his phone now. That's what his little minions went set up for him.
Well, don't you think too that you talked about delusions of grandeur? He thought, I mean, this guy doesn't know what he's doing in there. I'll just give you an example.
No, no.
He goes into Social Security and he looks down the list and he sees kids 8 years old, 10 years old getting something labeled SB. So he comes back out and he says, "Do you believe 8 year olds are getting small business loans?" No, you dumb motherfucker. It's survival benefits. You couldn't even figure that out. And you come out and you say it in public and look incredibly stupid. I personally think that he thought he would go in there because narcissists think they're superstars. Anything they say or
Mm-hmm,
do is like direct from God and it's going to be a
mm-hmm,
success. Well, he's finding out it's not successful for him. It's working just the opposite way. And what do narcissists do when they're failed and they're cornered? They fucking run. They run,
mm-hmm.
and that's what he'll ultimately do.
Absolutely. And he thought that he was going to get a big celebration, that everyone was going to be like, yay, thank you for going into our government and, it's saving our government. He thought, like a narcissist thinks, that they're
Yeah.
going to get accolades for how brilliant they are and what they do. And when it didn't turn out like that, they have narcissist collapse. And he's had several narcissists collapse on those secret phone calls with Trump, where Trump's telling him, don't worry, everything will be okay. And also on Fox News, when he's basically crying to Brett Baer saying, his company's finished. Um, they, I heard Congress people, and I can't remember his name, it was a Republican, get on Fox News and say, why are 11-year-olds getting Social Security? And the Fox News host was like, exactly why? And I'm literally screaming at the TV, because their parents have passed, because they're an orphan. That's why. Right? They lost a parent. That's why they're getting it. And even
Completely out of touch.
MAGAs don't get this. And then I saw MAGAs, and on social media, spouting it because a congressman had said it, because the lady at Fox News had agreed with it, and because they are too inept to think for themselves, to actually wrap their head around. And even when he was saying 300-year-old people, there's no one 300 getting Social Security benefits. He doesn't understand how the computer is calculating that. And it's like you said, he doesn't have a basic knowledge or understanding
He's a
of
computer
really
guy.
anything.
He's a fucking computer
Yeah.
guy.
He's
It's
not,
just
though. It's the
ridiculous.
people around him that are. It's the people around him that are. He's another
You know,
figurehead.
what's interesting about him, as I watch him on TV, I can see how emotionally broken he is and how
Mm-hmm.
delusional he is. He was doing an interview recently, and he's always seeming to be on the verge of tears, which is weird, because he's got all this money, all this power, but it doesn't seem hard to hurt his feelings. But he was talking about Tim Walz. And he says Tim Walz was out doing a talk, talking about how the stock market, or the stock for Tesla, has dropped in half, and he was happy about it. He was jumping for joy about it. And Elon goes, "What a jerk! Why would you even? That's mean. This is a motherfucker that's taking away people's livelihoods, taking away their health care, and he's whining. He's the victim because Tim Walz is stating a motherfucking fact. And it's because of what he's
Yeah.
done is why that's happening. That's how delusional this guy is.
Yeah. Zero self-awareness, zero empathy. He says he doesn't have empathy. I mean, that's part of why MAGA's morally bankrupt, is they think empathy is a weakness.
Then why is he
And
begging for it?
I mean, because he's different. He's special. He should be
Yeah,
special. Have you ever seen his mother on television? She is a
I have.
narcissist, his mother. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
this woman is, there's something very, very wrong there. So we can start to see how he was raised to get to where he's at. Talk about gender affirming care. Have you seen how much plastic surgery this man has had? If you see
Yeah.
pictures from him from years ago
Yeah.
to now, this is a deeply insecure man. We think in this country, if someone has money, it means they're smart. It does not. It does
No,
not.
it doesn't.
And basically, he is an illegal immigrant who is the biggest welfare queen we have ever had. Okay.
$8
And
million dollars a
he is
day.
here illegally. Remember, Joe Biden told us he does not. Yep. And he is not here legally, according to Joe Biden, out of Joe Biden's own mouth. He is not here legally. And so eventually he will probably run with his tail between his legs. I don't know when that will be, but he has to try to go save Tesla or go save what else is going on in his life at some point. And like I said, I believe he's had Doge he wanted Doge all on his phone, right? Just like he did
Right.
with the election. This is my theory. But if he had an app for the election, don't you think he has an app now? Don't you think that's what they were building him? A way to control things on his phone?
Right. Yeah, no
So
doubt. No doubt. But
in my opinion, that's done. Yeah.
do you see any way at all that he could save Tesla? I he's done what
No,
narcissists do. He's gone too far and there's no coming back.
they can piece it out and sell it for parts.
Yeah,
They can piece it out and sell
basically.
it for parts. And there are different aspects to Tesla. They make solar panels, SpaceX. There's a lots of different components and offshoots to it, so they can probably do something with it. But the brand itself and people buying it as an electric car luxury choice is over. So this is going to be a big bump for Rivian and what are Polestar and the other car companies that make competitor types of cars. Yeah.
Well, this may be the time when the big four come out stronger with their electric
And I
cars,
think
the
they have
Fords,
a
the
couple, I
Chevys.
think there's some, yes, I think there's some in the works with the big four as well coming out with their versions, yeah, of more luxury electric cars. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think the end game with Elon is? I mean, he's got a lot of things working against him. Everybody said, well, he's got $400 billion. But now we're seeing with what's going on with Tesla, that $400 billion and being the wealthiest guy in the world, that's kind of precarious. Only a couple things have to go bad and he's fucked.
Yeah, he won't be the richest person in the world forever. And eventually he will disappear to some island or go back to South Africa if barring them not filing charges against him. Because you have to remember there are several countries that are looking at filing charges against him for interfering in their
Right.
election or for whatever shenanigans he was pulling. So he will find some island that he can live on that isn't going to extradite him. He has enough money stashed different places that he'll be fine, but he won't be the richest man in the world. Most of it's on paper anyway, and he will be known as the bandit that ruined the federal government. I mean, his legacy is going to be mud in the history books. He will be known for destroying our federal government, for stealing the 2024 election. All of this will, I believe, all end up coming out. It will be exposed, all the stuff with the baby mamas, all of that. Like, his legacy is destroyed.
Yeah. I imagine 10 years from now, a documentary a la the Fire Festival documentary, just
Yeah,
he
yeah.
has the audacity to suggest that Social Security is a Ponzi scheme. He is a fucking Ponzi scheme. Everything about him is a Ponzi scheme. And don't you think what was going on with these departments, as long as the Republicans are in control, he's cool. But when the Democrats get control, what he's done with those little poorly complected techno twinks have done, they're all they're culpable of crimes. And when reasonable people are in control, these clowns, including Elon Musk, could get charged in this shit. They should get charged.
I mean, his little incel minions are in so much trouble. They've ruined their whole lives. They've ruined their whole lives. Now, granted, they probably have large stashes of money different places, and they might plan on escaping or have some escape route. I mean, Donald Trump will pardon a lot of people in this, but we'll have to see whether or not it ruins people in other ways. I think Elon will eventually leave America and go somewhere else. And I think some of the incels might try to do the same. Like I said, they've stolen untold amount of money. They're in crypto. These guys know how to have stashes of money places.
Right, right.
Um, but the the whole, like I said, I think that we're watching the Titanic right now. I don't know how or when this is going to end, but it's going to end very badly for all the players at the top. Signal is just the beginning, and it's going to come crashing down from here.
The idea of pardons, I think, I don't know if pardons will be in play because I don't think in order to get those pardons, it'd have to come at the end of Donald Trump's term. I don't think he makes it either physically, emotionally, or the Republicans at some point when he becomes too big a liability. And I thought they'd come to this point. They may impeach him themselves. Donald Trump may not be in play to hand out pardons when these people want pardons. That's kind of part and parcel to what we were talking about when it comes crashing down. Donald Trump always had a thread, always had something he could get out of it, but as the case is with most narcissists, those threads end up sucking in, and they got nothing at the end. They absolutely have nothing at the end. The destruction is catastrophic when it comes. And I got to believe that's where Donald Trump is headed ultimately. He's not going to be able to walk away from here and say, I was president, I fucked up, but I'm powerful. He's going to be destroyed before this is over, one way or another.
And we need all of them to be destroyed. We have to take the
Yeah.
whole thing down. None of them can be there. But my concern is if they impeach him, then we have JD Vance and then he just pardons everybody. The only difference with JD Vance is people hate him and he can't grab a crowd and he's not likable. But if they impeach or something happens to Trump and we have JD Vance, he will continue with the agenda, right? He will continue with what he was put there
Yeah.
in place to do.
But there's a big difference, though, because Donald Trump is uncontrollable. Not even the most powerful Republicans can control him. J.D. Vance gets to be president. I'm not going to be happy about that. But he is weak and he is controllable. And he'll have to keep in mind, I got to get reelected in 2028. Donald Trump doesn't have that issue. Um, I don't like the idea of J.D. Vance being
Mm-hmm.
president. But I think once you cut the head off Donald Trump, the whole MAGA experience gets way weaker. They need that goofball running this thing. JD Vance doesn't have the charisma or the power to do that. There's really no other Republican that could do it. So you cut off the head and you have to deal with some shit with JD Vance, but he won't be nearly as big a bull in a china shop as Donald Trump would be.
I agree. It will lose a lot of power and a lot of steam when if J.D. Vance becomes president. MAGA will lose that, but we'll also have like Ronald Reagan's ghost times a gajillion. We will
Yeah.
have the ghost of Donald Trump that is the martyr that died for his country. Whenever he passes, that's going to be the story. It's going to be Ronald Reagan on steroids, okay, as the martyr, as the hero, as that will always be there. It's weird and it will be weird, but that's part of what will keep this somewhat in place. And even if JD doesn't have any quote unquote chances of getting elected again or isn't likable, that doesn't mean he can't pardon everyone and really mess things up even more. Because
Oh,
Peter
no,
Thiel
he
is
could.
part of the what do they call it? The Dark Enlightenment, where they want to destroy society so it's only the oligarchs left.
Right. Well, don't you think though that they can do that, but with the presuming the destruction of Donald Trump and Elon Musk and maybe some of the other higher ups, this ultimately ends. Even if we have to go to 2028 to do it, it ultimately ends in the destruction of the party when things go badly. I mean, we know what happens in midterms and elections when you get the blue waves or the red waves because somebody just failed terribly. We saw it in 18, I think we saw it with the Republicans, but and in 2020, no, well, no, it was 2022. We saw them lose a lot. What's going on now with the Republican Party is even bigger than Donald Trump in the sense the economy's going to shit. He's at fault for it. But the Republicans are going to have to take responsibility for whatever wreckage is left. And that's going to make it harder for them to maintain any power. So um, ultimately, they can still fuck around as long as they still have some power. But the end is always going to be the demise of the Republican Party because nothing they're doing is positive. Everything is negative, and when everybody's been infected at some point, it's going to cost them horribly in elections.
Yeah, we have to have them completely self-destruct. Like I said, I think we're
Yeah,
at the beginning of that, but we have to have because we there can't be any of these people left. And that was problem what they did in Watergate was they didn't prosecute Roger Stone. They didn't get the outer layers of everybody, and then look what
right.
happened. They come back and wreak havoc. So we have to hold the vision that the whole kit and caboodle, the whole Titanic has to come down. None of them can be left. None of them can stay in power. They all have to go. That is ultimately what needs to happen so that we can rebuild the right way. And right now, if any of them are left, we won't be able to build anything the right way. We won't be able to safeguard Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid Medicaid. We won't be able to pass the Equal Rights Amendment. We won't be able to pass things that help climate change. And these type of things that are important in our values can't happen with any of these people in the way. They are not on board with our values, right? Like I said, they want us to be in 1850 right now. And so we have to have the whole thing come down. How that's going to happen, I don't exactly know, but we have to make sure on our part that they're unelectable, and then also hope that between now and the midterms that this whole thing goes so badly that, like I said, it all comes crashing down.
Somebody said something to me that I did not want to believe, I did not agree with, but now as I look at it, I go, maybe. People have said that Donald Trump beating Kamala Harris had to happen. And here's what they're saying. They're saying if Kamala Harris would have won, that would have been great. She would have been a great president. I believe that completely. But if Kamala would have won, then these MAGA fucks would just fester for another 4 years and continue to build strength or whatever, wouldn't be exposed for being the idiots they are because they wouldn't have had power. So this person is saying we needed Donald Trump elected. We needed MAGA to be in control to get that final destruction. Like I was saying before, it's like we have to hit rock bottom. We have to have the catastrophe in order to be, like you say, rid of this cancer, which is MAGA. And that's troubling to say that, but it almost seems like that's true.
I know, and I've heard people say that as well, and I don't like it because I don't want innocent
I
people
don't
to get
either.
hurt in that process, and innocent people get hurt when you do this. This is not the quote unquote right way to make changes and to reform just by tearing it all down and destroying people's lives. Um, and we don't even know the full extent of what Doge has done. I believe there's more trickery that will be uncovered with Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security in the coming months. So we don't even know the full scope of this and how and who it's going to impact. And I don't like the F around and find out. I don't like that. But
Yeah.
that's, the red states are going to get hit harder in some ways, and there are more they take more federal funds than blue states do. And so they will have deeper cuts because they have inept governments as well. The local governments and the local municipalities in southern states are terrible. They don't care about their constituents. And so they're more concerned with passing laws like, reading the Bible in school and taking away the pride flag in school than they are about really solving problems. So those states
Right.
will suffer, and we don't even know the full extent of it yet. So I've heard him being called in the spiritual community like the great disruptor, which I agree with. He is the great disruptor, but I don't think that we want to have huge disruptions that leave innocent people like what he did with COVID. We didn't learn our lesson
Yeah.
there. Okay, we're back here
Yeah.
now. I mean, he had a terrible response to COVID. There was no reason over 1 million people should have died, none whatsoever. So I resist that as well because I don't like it. I can understand why people say it, but I rather have it happen in a way that doesn't hurt innocent people. Yes, we need to make changes for what I talked about. Our country was not based on good values and principles. It just wasn't. And we have to have a country that works for everyone with equal rights for everyone and due process for everyone.
It's a sad commentary on the intellect of this country, but we've seen it before, maybe not to
Yeah.
this extent. We've got an epidemic of stupid in this country, and people have to be crushed before they realize, oh, that's
Yeah.
that's bad. Now, I think the whole Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security thing. Now, I will tell you, I'll be 65 next month. Okay, I took my Social Security at 62 because I said, give me my money right now. Whether it's better to take it at 65 or 67, I want my money now. So I took that. Next month, in a couple days, 2 days, I'll be on Medicare. Now, if something happens to Medicare or Social Security, it'll hurt me. It won't be devastating to me because I have other ways of handling this stuff. But I get people on the lives that are absolutely terrified of, because they live completely on Social Security. They count on Medicare. Their families count on Medicaid. And this is what angers me the most. And this is where we need some kind of, I don't know, retribution ultimately. Because over and above the problems they might create with these departments and all these entitlements, as they call them, the fact that they're putting people's lives who are tough in the fucking first place, and causing them for the last 2 months to be absolutely terrified of their very existence. That is a crime against this country and the people in it. And it pisses me off. I mean, I'll always find a way to survive, but I'm more fortunate than a lot of people. People I know, people that are following on TikTok or whatever, these people lives will just be devastated if something like that happens. And that's why I'm thinking this has to be the ultimate red line. Something like that happens with Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security. I say we're in a flat out, if we're not already, in a fucking revolution. And I don't know what that means
Absolutely.
necessarily, but it's not going to be pretty.
I absolutely agree. And I'm going to say something that is absolutely horrifying, but this is the way they look at it. They consider people on Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security as undesirables. They don't consider them valuable, vulnerable members of our society to be cherished and taken care of. They believe in eugenics. They want survival of the fittest. They don't have the same values we do. They
Right.
don't share our humanity. They are morally bankrupt. And that's the other problem with, yes, and someone misunderstood me, and I said this in the comments previously, our education system is a failure. No, it is not teachers' fault. Someone said, you can't blame the teachers. No, I'm not blaming the teachers, but our system is not funded well enough. Teachers are not paid enough. There are too many kids in class. Kids fall through the cracks. CPS is overwhelmed and can't make sure that every child is treated right. They can't follow up the way that they need to so kids don't fall through the system. There are so many things that happen that bring us to an ignorant person watching Fox News. And then there are also the people that are deeply racist. I grew up in a racist conservative family. It runs deep, the racism. And,
Yeah.
and for them, the Civil War never ended. They have a chance now to go back to 1850 and they want to take it. These people are so depraved, they rather burn it all down than let a Black woman lead. And that's why I preface this by saying I'm about to say something horrific because I know the people watching this podcast are horrified by that, just like I am. And this is not the way society as a global collective is headed. It's just not. We're not going backwards. And that's one of the reasons why this won't work.
That's what, I frequently have said in 2028, the Democrats need a white, younger male to run for president. And people will say, what about Kamala? What about, you know what? I'd love to see Kamala. I'd
No,
love
it's
to
over
see
for her.
AOC. Yeah, it's over for Kamala. And I'm
No.
sorry to say that because she's a
Mhm.
brilliant woman and she
Me
would have
too. It
been a
hurts
great
me so
president.
badly to say that. Yeah.
Yeah, my wife will sit and talk to me and she goes, because she supports Kamala and she says, they got to make Kamala the candidate in 2028. If they don't, I'm going to be so pissed. And I go, you know, in a perfect world, Kamala would run and win and we'd be fine. But I'm more concerned about winning than the name of the person who does it. It's whatever it takes. Once we get that win and we can try to right the ship a little bit, then we can look at the AOCs and the Kamalas and people like that. But we clearly have racism in this country that's far deeper than we imagined. We have sexism. I don't, honestly, I don't know if Kamala's problem was her race or her sex or a combination thereof. But at
It
least
was
one
both.
of them,
I think it was a
yeah,
combination of both. Yeah.
yeah, I think
And
so
and you
too.
and you said this point earlier about how they made it about asking her dumb questions like, do you consider yourself Black? Do you consider yourself Indian? And it was all that cultural stuff. They're eating the dogs, they're eating the cats, all this ridiculousness that's all gone now because it was just generated angst and generated to try to create discord and have him look like a better candidate. It was ridiculous. It was all manufactured. and they set out to destroy her in that way of even with bad lighting. I would notice on the interviews they would purposely light her poorly so that she looked
Yeah.
gray and dull skinned. And that's what I was saying about how I know about the tricks that go on behind the camera. I've been there. And I couldn't believe that her team wouldn't have someone look in the camera and see that and say, and we, it's all about the lighting. If you want someone to look like a villain, you can. They did the same thing to Joe Biden during the debate. They lit Trump up. He looked fantastic. They put a cool toned light on Joe Biden. He looked like he was death warmed over.
Yeah.
And so we have to be smart enough to see through this. And that's why I come on this show, because I feel like I bring a unique perspective of, I know the tricks from the media.
Absolutely.
I worked in this. And then I also now work in energy and work with people in a different way. So I understand how people work from a lot of different angles. And we have to be able to be smarter than this. We have to embrace being woke, embrace being aware. We have to want to keep learning. During the BLM protests, I learned so much about Black history and about Black culture. I'm a better person for it.
Yeah.
And so we have to own our values very strongly and be loud and clear with our values that women deserve equal rights, and so do trans people. And we have to be proud to be intelligent and want to learn. We cannot fall into the closed-minded, old-fashioned way of thinking that MAGA likes to fall into.
Yeah. My family always asks me why I do this. Whenever I watch historical shows or documentaries, it's almost exclusively about Black history. And what are you to be trying to be woke? No, it's not that. I don't know Black history, so I want to learn something I don't know. I'll tell you how bad it is. I watched a documentary the other day, biography about Old Dirty Bastard. Now, I didn't even know that much about Old Dirty Bastard, but I know he came from a period of time and a culture that was important in this country, and I wanted to try to understand it. I can't say that I still understand it because this guy had some issues, but it was a period of time that we should all know about because it's something we experienced. And what these people want to do is just negate or erase any kind of history from somebody that doesn't look like them. And here's a big dumb white guy watching about the Tuskegee Airmen or the disaster, what was it, down in Kansas, Tulsa. It's just, we need to know about that shit in order to try to get better. It's these people that you're talking about that don't want to get better. They thought they were good in the first place, being racist motherfuckers.
Yeah, I mean, when the tenant of your organization is calling on people to be ignorant that rather than to be aware, that should set off red flags, right? But
Yeah.
we can combat this by being open-minded, by wanting to learn, by being, like I said, living our values that we want to see in this country. We can't give up. That's what they want. They want to wear us down. And so we have to take breaks, take care of ourselves so that we can continue to have the conversations with our neighbors, have the conversations with someone at Trader Joe's, right? To be able to keep talking and having this dialogue so that we can have people wake up, right? And I think that the more that these people scramble, the more they expose themselves, and the more we need to keep talking about it and keep it going. It's up to us not to let any of this die. We have to keep the conversations going in our own life and our own communities, how this is acceptable and this is not who we are as Americans. We don't put
You
people
know,
in
when you,
concentration camps. We have due process. We don't do, that's not who we are. That's not what we do.
um, when you get older, I'm gonna be 65. You start thinking about your legacy. We're gonna wrap things up here in a minute because we're gone a little over. But um, I was sitting with my granddaughter in the car. We were going to a park, and she looks at me, and 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 probably the greatest curse of my granddaughter to my former daughter-in-law is that she looks a lot like my wife, and she acts like me. And she's sitting. I'm thinking about my legacy. I'm sitting in the car. She grabs a hat off my head, and she's never listened to my videos, but she's seen them. Probably not a good idea. She grabs my hat. She puts my hat on. She looks. She goes, "Look." I'm Grandpa Junie. Should we do a video? And I go, I'd love to do a video, but mom and dad probably wouldn't like that. But uh, I get my son just struggles with how bold and in people's faces. She'll walk up to anybody and go, "Hi, I'm Junie. You want to play?" I mean, the guy could be 57 years old. She doesn't care. Uh, I get so happy to watch her be that bold because there's so many people in this world that just sit back and let shit happen. We need somebody who's bold. So when that day comes, when I can do this no more, we might have little Junie up here talking some shit. And just to give you an idea of how she'd be able to fill in, uh, my son called me just appalled and upset. And my granddaughter was in her preschool class, and she was talking too much, and the teacher was talking, and she's learned after this, but she's talking to class. She's 4, and the teacher says, "You need to be quiet because of this." My granddaughter stands up and she goes, "I hate this fucking class." And I'm going, I started laughing, and my son goes, "What are you laughing about?" I go, "She's fucking 4. Jesus Christ. We'll teach her not to swear. I don't swear in front of her. So she didn't get it from me, son. Who'd she get it from?" But I love seeing young people with a little fight in them. And I don't see all that many people because I worry about younger people because the people I've talked to seem to think, well, there's not much I can do about it. They're doing whatever they want to me. And that's frightening for the future, I think. We need people who are willing to fight. And she's only going to be 5, so she's got a few years yet. But I hope we get more kids like that say, fuck it, I'm not tolerating this shit anymore. Because that's really what we need to in order to fix this country.
Absolutely. We have to have courage to fight against authoritarianism because they want to break us down. And fascism
Yeah.
thrives on fear. So we have to have courage and be brave and to speak our truth,
Yeah, absolutely.
like your
Well,
granddaughter.
well, we're trying to get her to understand decorum. She has, but she's 4 and
Yeah.
going to be 5.
Yes.
So we got time to work this out. And she's not the only kid to say the F word at 4. It's just she knows it gets a reaction, and then she gets away from it
When I
and
was
she's doing
5,
something.
I told my mom I was shoveling some snow and I said, take this job and shove it when I was 5. And I turned out okay. So yeah,
I had an aunt when I was young. I loved her. She was a great lady. We were buddies. I was the first grandchild, so she treated me differently. And she was getting married to a guy, and and she announced that she was getting married to this guy. And I walked up to him at about 4. I look at him, I go, "What's so great about you?" And then I took one of my toys and dropped it on a shoe. I guess that was a sign of things to come from me. But if kids just do weird shit, and every time my son calls, you know what she did today? I go, "She's 4. You did that shit when you were 4. Just relax. Just try to mold her and direct
she'll
her
be
down the
fine.
road.
Hmm.
It'll be fine. I'd rather have her be bold and outrageous than being timid. She'll go a lot farther if she's doing that." And I think that's good for all people. I've tried to tell my sons this. I've tried to tell people this. There's nothing wrong with being bold. You don't have to be afraid. Don't worry about what people think about you because they're going to hate you or love you no matter what anyway. So just be you. Just do it. And we need this country to be more bold and stand up. And it's nice to see with the protests and stuff that we're seeing more of that in this country. It's taken a disaster to do it, but at least they're starting to do it.
Yeah.
I'm going to wrap things up because I know you got other shit to do. Me, my wife's out of town. I ain't got jack shit to do, so I could sit here all freaking day. But I want to thank you for coming on. You know, that's there's a common thread every time I have guests on here, which is more often than not, or when I do the lives and I get the guests coming on there. Almost every show, somebody says, "Ah, that was a great show," and I want people to understand it isn't my brilliance as an orator. it's my brilliance of being able to attract people like you and Will and all these other people to come on and spread some wisdom and some perspective that I can't do. So I appreciate you immensely coming on. And as I've told you, anytime you want to come on, just let me know. I'll do an extra show if you want to come on.
Oh, thank you so much. I so enjoy our conversations, and I'm so grateful for this community. And I'm just so happy to be a guest, and I'll be back soon.
Yeah, and if people are wondering, would I ever have my granddaughter on? I can't. She swears too much. So we're not gonna, and mom and dad wouldn't like that. Anyway, for
Mhm.
those of you listening, um, I want to thank you for taking the time to do that. I hope you have a great day, and we will talk to you again tomorrow.